many strange legends are told of these jungles of India, but none so strange as the story of a small boy named Mowgli.
When Walt Disney acquired the rights to Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Book, he undertook a monumental challenge in storytelling. Kipling's The Jungle Book was a sprawling series of stories about the wild child Mowgli, his life among the animals, his conflicts with Shere Khan, and his struggles to adapt to civilization. As he had done in the past with his animated classics from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs to Sleeping Beauty, Walt Disney devised an ingenious narrative approach to a literary masterpiece to mold it to his unique style of animated storytelling. A style so successful that to this day, when we think of those classic stories, most people remember the Disney versions. First among the challenges was to create a linear story from Kipling's episodic adventures that jumped forward and back in time. Disney's top storyman, Bill Peet, worked on the adaptation for over a year. When Peet left the studio after arguing with Walt over his approach to the story, he brought home photostats of the story sketches he had begun for his version of the Jungle Book. Now, with Peet's April 1963 treatment from the studio's archives and the recent rediscovery of Peet's photostats more than 40 years later in Bill Peet's home studio, we can see how the story evolved from Rudyard Kipling's original Mowgli stories to Bill Peet's unfinished version to Walt Disney's animated classic.
It all began when the silence of the jungle was broken by an unfamiliar sound.
The story's opening sequence, the discovery of Mowgli and his rescue by the wolves, exemplifies the different approaches of Kipling, Peet, and Disney. In Kipling, the wolves hear Shere Khan attacking a camp of woodcutters. The woodcutter's child wanders off and enters the wolves' cave. Mother Wolf protects Mowgli when Shere Khan comes to claim him. Bill Peet, wanting to add drama and suspense to Kipling's story, embellished the rescue of Mowgli. A man cub has been carried off by the river, clinging to a log. The wolves gather at the waterfall to watch the baby go over the edge. Bagheera tries to rescue the baby, but fails. Mother Wolf saves the cub's life as he goes over the waterfall. Disney simplified the story's opening to a few elegant visuals, suggesting the flood by the image of the wrecked canoe. Throughout his adaptation, Bill Peet added dramatic details to Kipling's story. When Walt Disney took over the project, he simplified the narrative every step of the way to make room for character and entertainment.
What's the matter, old Papa Bear?
Look, Mowgli, I've been trying to tell you. I've been trying all morning to tell you. I've got to take you back to the Man Village.
The Man Village?
Bill Peet's greatest departure from Kipling's The Jungle Book turned out to provide the foundation for Disney's story. The Odyssey from the jungle back to the Man Village. That was the anchor that Walt and his story team kept returning to when they encountered difficulties. Kipling's Mowgli went back and forth between the jungle and the village, but the actual journey from jungle to civilization was a complete invention of Bill Peet and Walt Disney. The most complete sequence of Bill Peet's storyboards shows how Peet and later Disney used the journey to introduce characters. From Bill Peet's own treatment and storyboards.
An early morning mist hangs over the jungle, and Mowgli and Bagheera are still asleep. Suddenly, there's a violent shaking of the tree. Down below, an elephant herd is crowded about the tree, and a great bull bellows, "Man cub, what are you doing in my jungle?" And with his huge head, gives the tree trunk another violent butt. "Hold on, Happy," cries Bagheera. Now don't worry about the man cub. He's on his way back to his village. As the great elephant starts away, he warns, "I'm no killer, man cub, but if I ever come across you in my jungle again, I'll be forced to it." Man and his red flower. A close one indeed, exclaims Bagheera. Now let's get moving before our luck runs out. And he leaps from the tree limb to land lightly on the ground. And as the boy scrambles down to join him, Bagheera takes a cautious look around before starting off. Suddenly, a rhino comes crashing through the bush straight for Mowgli. "I smell a man cub," he bellows. "Death to the man cub!" The rhino wheels around in a fury, his tiny red eyes darting about in confusion. "I'll find you, man cub, wherever you are!" And Mowgli and Bagheera climb a ladder of stout, snaky vines until they are perched safely out of reach of a limb, while the nearsighted rhino goes blundering about far below, charging at bushes, stumps, and boulders in hopes one might be the man cub. Mowgli shakes with laughter, but Bagheera, as usual, remains sternly serious. "If you think this is funny," he growls, "you'll find many more laughs in this jungle. Have you ever tried laughing inside a python?" The boy looks at the thick, ropey vine upon which he is sitting. It is a giant python, and while they've been talking, the big snake has quietly arranged a few of his large coils around the boy until he is wrapped like a mummy.
Bill Peet's Colonel Huffy and Caw were the starting points for Disney's more richly personified characters.
Ah, those were the days. Discipline was the thing. Build character, all that sort of thing,
Pete's Rhino evolved in Disney's hands to a character named Rocky the Rhino, a punch-drunk fighter who showed up in storyboards of the Vultures sequence before being dropped from the story. Another element that Pete adapted from Kipling is the danger posed to the jungle by man's red flower, fire. In Kipling, fire is mentioned in the first scenes as the thing that animals fear and hate most about man. In Pete's story, Mowgli asks Bagheera about the red flower. In Pete's own words,
"Red flower in man talk is fire," replies Bagheera. "Fire?" puzzles Mowgli. Bagheera stops to stare at a charred black spire rising out of the ferns. That was once a great mango tree devoured by the red flower. Many years ago, the jungle creatures attacked man's village, destroyed his cane fields and cattle. Then man, in his anger, turned loose the red flower and destroyed the jungle and many of the beasts.
Later in Pete's story, Mowgli steals fire from the man village to challenge Shere Khan. In story meetings, Walt told his story team to steer clear of what he called the icky, sticky story stuff. Long dialogue-heavy scenes were not for his vision of the Jungle Book. In his ongoing emphasis on entertainment and comedy, the only touches Walt left of Kipling's Red Flower are with King Louie.
"Lay the secret on me of man's red fire."
And in the final defeat of Shere Khan. The character of Baloo is another big departure from Kipling's story. Kipling describes Baloo as a sleepy, serious old brown bear, a noble teacher of the law of the jungle, who teaches Mowgli the secret words of all the animals so he is safe wherever he goes. Pete's Baloo laid the foundation for Disney's Baloo, a lazy, happy-go-lucky bear who gains a sense of responsibility through his love for Mowgli.